Hello, this is Movie Hunter, and today for you is a retelling of the movie,
The Mortuary Collection.
Here we go. A newspaperman rides his bicycle and enters a mysterious town called Raven's End. At the end of his route he notices that no one is collecting newspapers near the creepy house and decides to ring the doorbell. He looks through the mail slot and takes a picture with his camera and notices the creepy look of an old man. The boy tries to get the camera out as his strap is stuck in the slot. The town gravedigger Montgomery Dark opens the door and welcomes him. When the boy runs away, the gravedigger calls him back to give him the camera, but the boy is too scared. Later that day, Montgomery gives the eulogy at the child's funeral. After the funeral, he notices a girl trying to open the boy's casket and stops her, believing she might not like what she sees. The girl says her name is Sam and she has come to apply for a job at the morgue. When Sam notices his extensive collection of books, Montgomery explains that they contain stories from his clients. Sam asks for a couple of stories and Montgomery agrees. So the first story, set in the 1950s. During a party, Emma goes to the bathroom to retrieve money from the wallets she stole from unsuspecting men. Throwing the wallets away, she examines her pocket watch and hides it in her bra. As Emma is about to leave, she hears a knock coming from the overhead locker. Her curiosity takes over and she tries to open it with a nail file. Eventually she unlocks the locker, but not without cutting her hand. While she is treating the wound, something closes the door. When she opens the locker again, she is horrified to find a tentacle-like monster inside and hastily closes it. Emma screams for help, trying to hold the door open, but no one hears her. When the monster stops moving, she tries to leave the room quietly, but her pocket watch falls out of her dress. The closet door opens and the tentacle grabs her and pulls her inside. Sam notes that the story isn't bad, but she notes that it would have been better if there had been an unexpected or cool twist. Montgomery assures her that he has more stories, and then asks Sam to sign a paper that puts her to work at the morgue. Montgomery leads Sam into the foyer, and then she sees several pictures of other people who worked in the house. When they reach the viewing room, Sam asks Montgomery about the dead boy, but he finds some of the stories too disturbing to retell. Then Sam asks him to tell another interesting case, and he tells the following tale, which took place at the university in the 1960s. A cute fraternity guy named Jake sets up a booth on campus advocating greater rights for women. He argues that patriarchy has collapsed and now women can sleep with whoever they want, as long as they have protection. Handing out condoms, he invites girls to the party. Connor sees an attractive and shy girl walking to class. He offers her a condom. Jake interrupts him and tells Connor to hand out condoms to the non-existent high school lacrosse team. Girl Sandra notices that Jake doesn't look like a freshman. Jake says he only shows up here to hook up with girls. He was stunned when Sandra admits that she is here for the same purpose. He then invites Sandra to his fraternity party. She agrees and heads to class, passing a billboard with pictures of missing guys. Jake sees that Sandra has come to the party. He immediately takes her to his room. While they kiss, Sandra warns him that she might be a serial killer. Then she pushes Jake onto the bed and undresses. Sandra hides something in her skirt and then crawls into Jake. Sitting on top of him, she says she has something for him. When she shows him the object, Jake is disappointed to see that it is a condom. He reluctantly puts it on. After a while, Jake asks Sandra to change positions during their intercourse. While Sandra is not looking, Jake sneaks the condom off and continues to do things to her. When Jake wakes up in the morning, Sandra is gone. He discovers that she has written her phone number on the mirror. So he erases it, but most of the numbers are still visible. Jake suddenly feels something rumbling in his stomach and goes to the bathroom to throw up. Connor soon comes in and notices his friend has a rash all over his body. So he advises Jake to see a doctor. At the clinic, Dr. Harold Kubler hears a heartbeat and rumbling in the patient's stomach. He asks Jake to wait and leaves his room. Jake looks at his medical records. He is shocked to learn that he is pregnant. Back at the dormitory, Jake takes a pill to terminate the pregnancy, but after a few minutes he just vomits. Jake decides to call Sandra when he sees that his belly is growing. He dials the wrong number several times because he erased the last digit. When Jake finally gets through to Sandra, they make an appointment. Jake tries to leave the fraternity, but is stopped by his fraternity mates to celebrate his 67th sexual encounter. The fraternity considers the number 67 sacred because it symbolizes 67 of their founders. When they carry him in a chair to hang his name on the fireplace, his waters break right on his fraternity mate. Jake immediately goes to Sandra's house. Do you like the movie script? I'm sure you'll find it very interesting, and to learn about cool movies, subscribe to our channel. Give it a like and turn on the bell. Upon his arrival, Sandra's father, Ralph, groans in frustration upon seeing Jake's belly. His wife Margaret immediately calls Sandra and prepares to deliver the baby. When Sandra enters the room, Jake berates Sandra for his pregnancy. The girl, however, points out that he should have taken precautions. Sandra leaves and calls another man to make a date. As the fetus moves through his womb, he asks Ralph, "How is the baby supposed to come into the world?" Margaret explains that it will come out just as it came out. Jake screams in pain as the baby makes its way out. Jake's blood splashes around the room. After his genitals explode and the infant ruptures his abdomen, Margaret immediately pulls the infant out and carries him to the nursery. She cautiously walks out of the room, but accidentally steps on a whistle toy. The room is filled with screams. All the babies in it wake up. One of them raises his claws in the air. Sam is impressed with the tale because it has all the elements of a good story. Then Montgomery takes Sam into the embalming room and shows her the corpse of a young woman. Sam notices that the woman seems perfect, but Montgomery points out that her upper palate contains traces of magnesium, which is characteristic of patients in an immobile state. Montgomery tells the story of Carol Peters and Wendell Ounce. During the wedding ceremony, Wendell looks happy as he puts the ring on Carol's finger. Just as the priest asks him if he vows to love her until death, darkness suddenly falls in the church. Carol begins to breathe heavily. Wendell wakes up from a nightmare and hears Carol coughing heavily. He goes to her room to check on her. Wendell sighs in despair, unable to do anything for his motionless wife. Wendell, one evening, returns from the grocery store. Mrs. Avery, Wendell's neighbor, notices all the groceries he bought and brags about eating them on the cruise. While they wait for the elevator, Avery says that she could never go anywhere when her husband was alive, but after his death she can go anywhere she wants. When the elevator arrives, Yuri goes inside, but Wendell decides to take the stairs. At home, Wendell prepares a meal for Carol, beautifully arranging vegetables, fish, and meat on a plate. Then he puts them in a blender to make it easier for her to digest them. When Dr. Kubler examines Carol, he notes that her condition is stable. Wendell asks, "How much longer will she live?" And the doctor reports that Carol will live another year. Wendell worries that because of the bills, he won't be able to keep her alive for another year. Kubler decides to leave him some pain medication and hints that Carol might die if she takes too many pills. When Wendell doesn't get the hint, Kubler tells him that the substance leaves no trace and it's impossible to tell if Carol took too many. That evening, Wendell dresses up for a candlelit dinner with Carol and gives her a bunny figurine. He asks Carol to show him a sign that she is conscious, but she just stares into space. Wendell slams his hand on the table in frustration because of her lack of response. He slips pills into Carol's food and feeds her. Then Carol suddenly grabs his hand. Wendell realizes that she can react, so he immediately removes her restraints and flushes her stomach. Wendell is relieved to see her vomiting, but her head falls to the table. Wendell lifts her head up and discovers that she has been put on a statue. Wendell goes to Kumbor for help, but Kumbor simply tells him to throw Carol's body into the ocean. Wendell places Carol's body in the wedding chest, but it won't fit, so he cuts her into pieces. As he begins to cut off her thigh, she suddenly reaches for him and screams. Carol stops moving when Wendell removes the figure from her head. Eventually, Wendell manages to chop up the body and shove it into a box. As he shoves the box into the elevator, the man asks that he hold up the elevator for him. But Wendell refuses to wait, so he forcibly closes the door, trapping his neighbor's hand. The elevator soon begins to move, but suddenly stops before reaching the first floor. When Wendell tries to open the doors, he is only able to open them slightly. Suddenly Mrs. Avery appears and offers to call the police. Wendell stops her and tells her that the elevator will probably go again soon, but Avery insists on calling the police anyway. When the elevator doors suddenly close, he notices Carol's blood leaking from the box. Wendell tries to get out through the hatch, but slips. In frustration, Wendell drops his wedding ring. The bride's chest suddenly unlocks. Wendell tries to open it, but the elevator begins to descend. The elevator continues to descend, even reaching the first floor. Looking out the window, he sees himself and Carol living happily together. Carol's decaying corpse suddenly appears from the box and puts the engagement ring on him. After which she forces him to kiss her. When the elevator opens, the police find Wendell sitting on the floor making wedding vows, clutching his wedding album in his hands. Montgomery tells Sam that Wendell has lost his mind and has been committed to a mental institution. Montgomery takes Sam to the basement. She complains that his story is predictable because they always involve people who pay a terrible price for their sins. Montgomery emphasizes that this is a timeless message because no evil deed goes unpunished. As Montgomery pushes the coffin containing the boy's body into the cremation chamber, Sam stops him and confesses that she didn't actually take the job. She tells him that she came to see the boy Logan because she was responsible for his death. Sam begs Montgomery to let her see the boy one last time, and he opens the casket for her. Sam goes on to tell the man about the night Logan died. She was babysitting Logan then. As the boy slept, the girl watched a horror movie, The Murder of the Babysitter. Out in the kitchen, Sam sees a message on the answering machine. Dr. Gubler and his wife Deborah inform Sam that they will be home late, so they instruct her to make sure Logan is asleep. Before hanging up, they tell Sam to make something to eat if she is hungry. After checking on Logan, Sam turns on the radio and cooks a meal. Meanwhile, a reporter interrupts the movie to tell the residents that a riot has broken out at the shelter. The police advise the residents to lock the doors because some inmates may have escaped. When Sam takes out the trash, she does not notice the broken window by the door. When she returns to the house, she sees a man in the living room with a head wound, so she goes into the kitchen to get a weapon. She pulls out a cleaver, but the man is behind her. The man seems harmless and disoriented. Sam decides to help him. She washes his wound. The man becomes agitated when the phone rings and the machine answers. Deborah tells Sam to lock the doors because a psychopath known for maiming children has escaped from the asylum. Seeing that his eyes are drawn to Logan's toy, Sam shoves the man's hand into the meat grinder and twists his fingers. Then she tries to hit him, but he knocks her down with a kick. The man slowly pulls his mangled hand out of the meat grinder. Sam tries to stab him, but blocks him with a cutting board, at which point the phone rings and the man picks it up. The girl continues her attack while he yells over the phone. Deborah is still on the line. Sam bites off his ear, but he manages to knock her to the floor. The man goes to Logan's room, but the boy is not there. Sam rushes to the boy's room when he hears the man screaming. Sam attacks the man with a poker and he throws books at her. The man manages to get her on the floor again and hits her several times. After which he looks for Logan. The Kublers arrive soon, but they can't enter the house because of the chain lock on the door. The man strangles Sam, but she begs him to let go, saying he's not the killer. The man gets up and tells her it's over. But Sam pushes him down the stairs. When the man regains consciousness, Sam drops a TV on his head. When the Kublers enter the house, we realize that the man was Logan's babysitter. We learn from the news that the escaped prisoner is a woman named Charlotte Gibbons, also known as the Tooth Fairy. Deborah panics after not finding Logan. The Kublers look into the furnace and scream in horror upon finding Logan's remains there. Montgomery asks Charlotte, why did she come to the morgue? She takes a tooth from the boy's remains and says she needs it for a collection. Charlotte stabs Montgomery to keep him from telling her story, but Montgomery only laughs at her while embalming fluid flows from his wound. He tells Charlotte what she has gotten, and she runs away. Eventually, Charlotte reaches the door, but after walking through it, she finds herself inside the house again. Trying to escape from Montgomery, Charlotte ends up in the library. When he catches up with her, he tells her that he was once just like Charlotte. He thought he could escape the consequences of his actions until he stumbled upon this house. Montgomery hits the floor several times with his cane. Several books fall off the shelves. He says that Charlotte would be surprised to learn how many of the library's stories belong to her. Soon the books open by themselves, and several dark child spirits crawl out of the pages. When one of the spirits bites Charlotte, she drops her collection of teeth on the ground. Other spirits also begin to attack Charlotte. After the girl dies, one of the spirits grabs a tooth from the ground and puts it on. After gathering Charlotte's body back up, Montgomery leaves the house. Once outside, he sighs in relief, but soon crumbles to dust. Charlotte returns to life in the house and sees her disgusting face in the mirror. Soon, becoming the new Undertaker, Charlotte tells the story to the newspaper man. When the boy tries to leave, she dissuades him by saying she is going to cook him dinner. And this video is almost over. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss interesting movies and watch our other videos. Have a great day.